I'm joined here by Richard Cooper, who is Rosemary McLeish's widower. For people who don't know the situation, although most people do know Rosie's work, at least in this immediate community. And we're here to talk about Rosie, remember her, talk about her work, and get into her books a little bit more. And the first question, even is testament to this, us being here. Why do you think that Rosie's work affected so many people?
I think it's because it's really quite profound and it's deep and it's beautifully done as well. The paintings and the poems are beautifully executed, but it really is because what she writes about is of vital interest to most people. I think um,
Mm.
nature, living life, friends, environment, that kind of thing, lots of things, and political issues as well.
Yes. Yes. Do you know what? Politics is important, and I actually haven't written any questions down about it. So I think that that's good to touch on. What is the political message, if we can call it that, or stance of Rosie's work, aesthetic?
Well, she was her father was a communist and brought her up to know about what was going on in the world. For instance, when she was even a little girl, she got to know about the Holocaust in some detail, and she always had that view, and she involved herself with some activity. But when she was living in America, was a time when the Kent State killings were done, and her view was, if they're going to start killing us, then I'm going to go for the personal is political as a way of working through. But she always had a left wing, more or less anarchist view of the world. She was delighted when Jeremy Corbyn was elected and horrified by what happened after that. And so she just maintained a steady left wing and feminist viewpoint. So everything from very left wing, anarchist, feminist, and supporting women. There's an awful lot of feminist work in her poems and to some extent in her artwork as well. The prize was generated by a publishers Sam and Barry Fenchman Hall, who thought it would be a nice idea to do that, and then I think they initiated in something like 2022, and there's now been two holdings of it, and some very good poems have come out of that. Very good.
What did you think of this last round's winner, Connor, and his poem Marine Snow?
I thought that was very good. I mean, I thought it was good. I think we were somewhat surprised in general that Connor uh, would win, and that's not very nice of us, I don't think, because he's a very good poet, and it's not entirely surprising, and it's a very good poem as a winner. So that's good. And the previous one was good as well. And there were in both of those cases there were good poems and ones that won and were placed were really good. And so
Hmm. I think Rosie's journey is so important. So many people give up when they reach a certain age
yes,
or whatever that means. I think
yeah,
Rosie showed that it's never too late to do what you love and that you
yeah.
can be a master in that field.
That's exactly right. I mean, she was some of the events in her life weren't great or encouraging of somebody to take up a creative a life, and so she had to work for a living. She worked in social services and housing. And she did a degree in psychology and anthropology, which has affected her work a lot. And then she met me, and we got married, and I was able to give her in what was in many ways not a great marriage, financial security and space to do what she wanted to do. So she started writing soon after we got married. She started with a cookery book, which was a memoir and cookery book. And then she started writing short stories and some poems. And then when we moved to Glasgow in 1985, she took painting classes, art classes, and she got into that enormously quickly. It's like I mean, I can't even imagine being able to paint from the very beginning as well as she could in oil pastels. She just could do it straight away, which was wow. Because you think I didn't marry a creative person I knew to be creatively functioning, as it were.
Mm.
And when your spouse suddenly says, "Well, I'm going to do an art class," and she starts bringing home paintings and things like that, and you're kind of dreading it. It's like when she was learning to drive, kind of dreading sitting with her for the first few lessons, and you assume that the person, having had no training, is going to come up with mediocre stuff, and she just didn't, and it was shocking, really, as well as delightful, and she was good at driving too, and so it was amazing that she could just get into being an artist and a writer. Her writing was already good, and she developed poetry rather than other things. She wrote a novel before this, before we moved up from London, and she sent it into a publisher, and they said it was really great. Nobody can put it down, but we can't publish it. Right. So, and she didn't have one of the things she didn't have, which a creative artist absolutely needs, is the ability to push and publicize, and she could never really do that. And I'm not good at that either. I was never good at that. So we didn't push her as much as she could to have thrived much earlier and better.
Mm. She seemed like she had quite a lot of success later on in shifting the books. If you know, if it is a question of units or anything like that, it seemed like they did sell really well. I Am a Field and
Yeah,
Defragmentation, and she gigged a lot.
yeah. That's right. She well, as soon as she got, I mean, the big breakthrough was when she read the poem "I Am a Field" in Faversham, and I think you were there. I think it was your
Yeah,
first time you read anywhere, wasn't it? And you were great.
absolutely, yeah.
And Barry, her publisher, immediately said, "I want that," and so she wanted it for his magazine Confluence, and then they agreed to publish a collection and then a second collection later on, and so that was a big breakthrough, and it's it was wonderful. They did a lot of really good work for her doing the publicity and publishing that she wasn't good at, and I wasn't very good at either. So it was. Uh, that was it. And as you say, the readings that she did always went well, and she immediately got into being able to read poetry when the opportunity arose. And and as you know, she did a creative writing course in Glasgow, doing Glasgow because we lived in Glasgow and it was convenient, and the course had a good reputation. But it's got a good reputation producing novelists, a lot of really top class Scottish novelists have come through that course, but not for poetry. And she didn't get on at all well with her tutor, who told her he would never support her, and so on, which is a disgraceful thing for a tutor to say under any circumstances. But she should have gone to St Andrews, and we should have be able to work out she'd be able to go to that. She'd be able to go for sessions in St Andrews. No reason why that shouldn't have happened, but partly because my misunderstanding the difference between a science master's, where you have to be there all the time, and a humanities master's when you don't. But St Andrews has a world-renowned poetry festival and a lot of world-renowned poets to teach the course, so it would have been the right thing to do. But she was damaged by going on the Glasgow course, no question about that. I gave her a bare pass. She concentrated on artwork after that for a while, but then she got back into poetry and started getting things published. So,
Yeah.
uh,
How
um,
how does the art and the writing relate to each other? Is there a relationship between the two?
very strong, right? Very, very strong relationship. Uh,
Mm,
I've uh, I've had exhibitions on her of her work where she's sort of blending art and poetry. I've called them. She's written poems about artists, about her own work, and she's blended poems into artwork.
mm.
So there's a poem, Zipped, which is about not being shut up as a little girl. And it's in a pinafore decorated with zips. Um, and it's very effective. And she sold multiple copies. She made many copies of it and sold lots of them. And it was very successful. You can see it in the wooden box in Ramsgate if you want. It's in the window,
Oh, nice.
and it's uh, the so there was that they just interacted with each other very well.
Mm,
All of her, I mean, they're on the same sorts of themes of feminism and love of nature. So
mm.
they just slot into each other perfectly.
We recently spoke to SM Jenkin. Can you tell me a bit about the Unspeakable pamphlet?
Yeah, so Rosie and Sarah agreed to make this pamphlet some time before Rosie died, probably a year before she died. And so this was an effort to write about things that are not spoken about. That's really what it was about. And they did it like a tennis match. Somebody would write a poem, and then somebody would write the other one would write a response, and then you get the whole interleave poems in the collection, which is excellent. And Sarah's a very good poet as well.
Yeah,
So,
she's great.
so
Rosie writes actively of changing the image of older women. Do you think that she did this?
yes, I
Although I
think
suppose she wasn't always an older woman. That's
no.
the thing about it.
I think she was thinking in terms of what older women can bring to the world for earlier than she was. But obviously, when she was older and uh, increasingly unable to do things, but having the same spirit, then it's just showing the same spirit is alive when you're older. It doesn't die. I mean, she didn't stop working till maybe a week or two before she died. She just didn't
Wow.
stop. Um, and it was not something that she was ever going to do. It's like breathing, creating art and poetry.
Oh yeah.
Yes, she there's no point in being there if being around unless you're doing work which is meaningful to you. And she didn't run out of ideas. As far as and one of the things she was doing later on was reflecting on people who had influenced her, and she created a series of neck pieces notionally that you can wear, but you're probably never going to, which were essentially three-dimensional portraits of people like D.H. Lawrence and Robert Louis Stevenson, but also Maury Lloyd. And
Mhm.
so they again, and the really saddest thing about her dying is she was talking to me about writing a book about creativity based on these people. And she got as far as writing a draft of one chapter and a half of another one, and that was it. And what she was telling me, which of course I can't remember, it's impossible, they were profound and detailed thoughts about creativity, would have been a fantastic book. And I really regret that she couldn't get to make that. But
It was like her lifeblood, wasn't it? Creativity
yes,
to her. And I think it is to all of us, but you could see with her, like, obviously, her illness considered as well, it was almost like it kept her alive.
yes, yeah, absolutely. She very important. I mean, was lifeblood is good because one of the things we didn't have children, so she didn't have to think about I need to do this for a child or that. She had, which I think you know perfectly well, is perhaps a distraction. And
Oh, it's the best thing though, but that's
yeah,
not the best
absolutely.
thing for everyone. So I'm not
Yeah,
saying it's the best
yeah,
thing
no,
for everyone.
I think we were both ambivalent about the whole thing, even to the end. So there is uh, uh, some reflection on childlessness throughout her work as well. So it's in the end, I think she was. I don't actually know, but she wasn't um, brilliantly happy about being childless. It's not the same as maybe being very unhappy, but she didn't she didn't in the end probably think that was a good thing. But she did continue being creative uh, and I don't know whether artworks or your children. I don't know what you think about that. You've got, you know what you've made and what you think
I
about
guess
that as
I guess I
against.
don't think that they're I guess that I don't think that they're my artwork so
Yeah,
much,
yeah,
especially as they get older. I guess that they are their own, and I'm trying not to put that upon them of any kind of me, because
yeah.
when your mom says, "Oh, you need to be good for me," or "You need to be like your granddad," or "You need to be like your auntie," so I'm trying to undo, but it's
All
not
right.
always
Yes,
easy.
yes. Well, I mean, our family life was from an academic and very creative part of you. His father was a lecturer in psychology, amongst other things, and our eldest brother was a writer who produced lots and lots of things, and particularly about translating ancient Greek
Oh
texts.
wow. Were they
Uh,
were they a very academic family then, or
yes,
just very
very, yes,
driven?
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
wow.
They and my and a second brother uh, did a music degree and was going on to do a PhD, but he didn't finish it. I'm not quite sure why. And then he became a music teacher and very creative. Uh,
Yeah.
a third
Ro-
brother is not
Yeah.
was not so creative and was a bit of a out of. So he was more into making money and things like that. And our fourth brother Richard was also a creative in various ways, photography and playing the guitar, and
Yeah.
so
Well,
they
Rosie
were
was almost effervescent with creativity. I mean, I always think about myself. I don't really have any ideas until I have an idea and I feel like, oh, this might be something I can work with. But Rosie's like hundreds of ideas that even at very difficult parts that I knew her where she was poorly, it was like, my goodness, you have so many ideas. Her brain was always going.
so it wasn't always quite like that.
Oh, really?
One of the things that she experienced, which I think other people have experienced, is she would tell me, uh, I can't think of any ideas for any more poems. I haven't got any more ideas. I will never write another poem. Sob, sob. And then the next day there would be a brilliant poem. That would be, it's almost,
I know.
almost, I could guarantee there would be a brilliant poem on the day after she said something like that to me,
Mm.
which is,
Quite usual, I think, for
yeah,
poetry.
I think it is. I think so.
Was Rosie affected by a strict religious upbringing?
No, no, not at all. Her parents were purely secular.
Oh, really?
Her father uh, came from a Glasgow Catholic family. He was one of 8 children. One of his brothers wrote the Gorbel story, which is a play about. It was written in, I think, the 40s about a Gorbels family, a poor Gorbels family, and a lottery ticket, I think it was about, and it getting lost. And he built a boat in his front room.
So really
So
quite
there's
an
great
amazing group of
creativity,
people,
and
yeah.
other people in her family were creative too. Father came from a Catholic family, and her mother came from a Protestant academic family. Her grandfather taught geology at Glasgow University, and
Oh wow.
so she had all of that, but there was no sense of either of her parents uh, being religious or putting any religious ideas into her head. But she wrote one poem about her father that at the end says, but when he was dying, he called for the priest, having been uh, uh, secular all his life. That's what it kind of sticks with you.
Yeah, definitely.
Not with her at all.
No.
She did try to find. She did try to find religious ways of being. She did. She joined the last throw was. She joined the Quakers, and
Mm.
and when she found that it was just as hierarchical as all other religions, she ditched it. And so, whereas Quakers, you say, uh, are not hierarchical, but in fact they were.
Yeah. How would you like Rosie to be remembered, and why are you doing this work to preserve her legacy?
I'm doing this work because I just believe in it. I just think it's fantastic. I think she was a great artist and a great poet, and it needs to be there. And I'm not. Even people keep saying you're doing a lot. I'm absolutely not doing enough to make sure it persists, and that saddens me a lot. But I'm only one aging person, and it's kind of hard to get to do all the things that need to be done. But uh, uh, it's just essential. I mean, it's just I can't not do it, and I hope I'll get it to a state where it persists after I die. But I'm not confident in that at the moment. But it's because
That's
it's
the question for all of us. I think once you get a few books out and you've gigged for a few years and you've been in magazines, you've done all that at that level,
yeah.
then you start to think, actually, is anything gonna be on afterwards? And I think there's
Well,
a lot of us in that space.
yeah. Well, again, what's important that's come out of the Pilgrims Hospice is the exhibition that's currently on at the Wooden Box Gallery called "Dead Good Artists," and several people have submitted um, uh, um, artworks that have been left to them by their relatives, and it's very good. It really is a good exhibition. When I put this in, I thought it's going to be. I always have this negative set, but it's going to be mediocre with Rose's good stuff in there. And actually, Rose's stuff is good in there and it works very well. But a lot of the other ones are good and they're different, and it's a great exhibition. So
Yeah.
I'm pleased about that.
I actually think that Rosie could have been, and it's not always helpful to think of it like this, but just in terms of the quality of work, could have been more famous, if that's what's important, even than she was. I mean, she was a national level poet. As a writer, I don't know as much about her artwork, but as a writer, she was flawless. You know, she could have gone all the
Yeah,
way.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, artwork was really good at it, but I mean, as you say, poetry, and I do what I can, but as I say, I'm limited, limited energy levels at the moment, so I'm doing that. So there, as well as the exhibition in the Wooden Box, now next month there's an exhibition entirely of her work there, and we'll have an opening with some poetry reading and things like that. I haven't got that sorted out yet, but so I'm doing that there, and I'm looking for other people. But she had lots of friends in the art world in London, and I asked them, "Is there somewhere I can have an exhibition?" And I say, "No, it's really difficult." And nobody says, "Well, you should have it here. Why don't you have one here?" or anything like that. But nobody manages that, and I can't just sort out something for London easily on my own. Rebecca at Wooden Box suggested the Brick Lane Gallery, so I'm going to get in touch with them. But my idea of a gallery like that is booked out years in advance and things,
Oh, wow.
so it's not easy.
Reading the section about body image on Rosie's website, it's such a familiar and common story. I too had some body horror, although not as much as Rosie, and I managed to do some successful reclaiming in later life. But I had the swimming humiliation, I had the menstrual humiliation. Do
Yeah.
you think times have changed now and that women aren't made to feel so humiliated anymore?
Uh, Not being a woman, I can't say. I think things are better, but no, we don't live in a world where feminism has, in some sense, succeeded.
Very.
I don't have any sense of. I mean, I know uh, a lot of women who certainly. I mean, I just think they're absolutely magical, quite frankly, magical, and they don't think that, and that seems very unfair to me. And it's
Lots
I
of men
look,
are magical too, though.
yeah, right, exactly. I mean, I think they uh, very much. I actually wrote a poem about it, which I dug out and read in various places last week, called Dumper, and it has three verses which are about a man who's found the perfect woman until he picks up a women's magazine. And then he realized how massively
Oh,
imperfect it
wow.
was, so he dumps her. And the last verse is him. I don't have a girlfriend now. I'm too busy reading the magazines and sorting out a spreadsheet of all the things. And then when I've got my spreadsheet finished, I'll have the perfect woman, and then I'll go and get her. That's what the poem is, and because I'm really angry about that. I'm absolutely furious about the way that women are disrespected in all kinds of ways. But I mean,
Like this new Andrew Tate way of being. Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand why he's allowed to get away with that. Um, One of the problems that women have is they're not very physical about fighting back. If he was a woman doing things like that, she would be dead. And so it's but women don't fight back enough. Well, they seem like they fight back a lot, but it never seems to be enough. So
Hmm.
I'm pretty pissed off about that.
Can you tell me a bit about your poetry and when did you start writing?
Oh, I've written two poems, which is that one which I wrote some years ago. But as I said, I got it out again, and that got really well received. And I read
It
it at
sounds good.
Gravesend and Ramsgate and Sheerness. I read it. So then I wrote a poem called "Taking My Poem on Tour," which was about how much it like. I mean, I've sort of absorbed some. I don't know. I'm not well versed in poetry at all, but I've absorbed some of it. Taking a metaphor, the poem is a person that likes being read and and likes it, that people like it, and that seemed to have worked well, and that's gone down well as well. But I'm not naturally inclined to writing poetry. I think when you write a poem, you really reveal a lot about yourself, and I
Oh
don't like
yeah.
that. So I do a lot of writing now, but it's prose, and it's I invent people and write what they tell me what to write, and I write their story, but it's not my story,
Yeah.
and that's much easier.
Oh yeah, writing characters is fun as well. The marriage with wordsmithery seems to have been so synergetic. And
Yes,
I'm thinking of Anna Kavan and Peter Owen, or loads of other examples. When the writer and the publisher come together in the right way, it's
yeah,
magic.
yeah.
Why do you think there was that magic?
Well, well, I think it's essentially well, Rosie got on very well with Barry and with Sam as well, very well, and they just loved the poetry. I mean, I think they were. Um, I'm not sure. I think they're not going to do any more publishing of poets' collections anymore. They don't sell well, and they've got plenty of other things to do. I hope they're going to continue with Confluence, but and that's sad. But they just when you were there and Barry fell in love with I Am a Field, that love never stopped, and he has. And he's got he's had a lot of energy, and Sam too. And Sam has, I mean, if you want to get a book published that's going to look good, you want Sam to do it, quite frankly, because she's
Mm.
better than anybody. She's brilliant in her way as Rosie is in her artwork. So it's and it worked well. And she was able to merge Rosie's artwork into the two collections and into Confluence sometimes as well. So that was it was a marriage made in heaven between Rosie and those two. And I've got to find other people. I've got to get more poems published. That's one thing I must do.
Same.
And there are about 1,000 of them, so there's a lot, and mostly they're well worth publishing. And so I'm trying to get on with that amongst
Yeah.
million other things.
I always say you only really need one publisher to believe in you. I know you do remember that Burns night was incredible. I need to go back and check what the astrology was then because it was that set me off, that set Rosie off.
Yeah,
We both met Barry and Sam. It was an amazing night. I think it's the first time we all connected with Angela Dye as well. And it's just
yes,
like,
that's right.
what are the chances of two poets finding their whole careers and their publishers in one night? You know?
Well, I know it's fantastic. Yeah, yeah, it was a good no, it was brilliant because she came back buzzing, and it was, as you say, a start of good things. So that was in 2017, towards the well, in January 2017, and then the year ended very poorly with her receiving a terminal diagnosis just before Christmas, and so that didn't stop her. Just didn't stop her. Was shocked and painful. And so the second collection, Defragmentation, came out of her thinking about dying. Really, I was quite. I've got to read from my book group a book already read by her by Helen Dunmore, who's a very very good novelist and poet, a very good poet. And then I read that she'd written a book. She published just before she died, and I thought, oh, this is going to be about dying, and she'll do it. Well, it's not at all. It's just a collection of poems. So I was very disappointed to have not a comparison that would have been interesting. Um, it's a good collection of poems, but it's not. It's not about dying. um,
Yeah. Well, what a subject. Do you think that no matter how well you try to remember and honor Rosie, there is always a danger in any sort of representation because any stance is a narrative and at the exclusion of others?
of who do you mean by others?
Just no, say if Dave was an incredible artist
Yeah,
and I toured with his work, it would always be my take on Dave or how I see him. I suppose no person can ever fully see someone.
Yes. Well, exactly. No, I agree with that, and I agree with, and essentially, when I, uh, and well, no, both the artwork and the poetry, because I'm certainly not skilled in poetry. I used to skip poems if they were in a novel, for instance, and the uh, and so I don't have a sense um, of really understanding. I do a bit now because I read not just Rosie, but lots of other people like you and
Mm.
other people, and I got some sense of what a poem is and how it works, but not to an academic level or anything like that. And so I rely on people coming up to me and say that was a fantastic poem over and over again. And I think, why am I not doing enough? I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough, because you're right. I think I do, and this is a really nasty thing I say, which is, if only Rosie's work had been mediocre, I could just stick it in the bin and relax. And that's a horrible thing to say. I'm delighted that that's not the case, really. And
You touched many people's lives, so
yeah,
that's important.
absolutely, it's an honour to be looking after her work and reading her poems. I didn't think um, at first, after she died, I didn't really know what to do, and I definitely didn't think I could go and read them in public. I didn't think I had the right to do that or the ability.
Mm.
And people told me, get over yourself, get on with it. That's essentially what they said.
Yeah.
And I started in Ramsgate with Emil, a session, and they were so welcoming. And
Mm.
people in the places I go to are very, very supportive and helpful, and it's really nice. So I read in all over the place, and try to get her name out there. But I need to publish some more, and I will. I'm in the middle of doing some of that, but it needs
Mm.
a lot more.
How are Rosie's two collections, I Am a Field and Defragmentation, different and similar?
Defragmentation is more kind of unified, and it just goes right the way through. It's about lots of things. It's about
Mm.
anger and hysteria and caring about the people who she's leaving behind, and also one marvelous poem, Skeleton, that was it's kind of valuing the cancer itself. So it's very varied in its whole thing, but it's in the subject matter, but it's a seamless. But I Am a Field starts with one section that's really about talking about places she loves, and then it gets on to be more environmental and what uh, uh, and what we're doing to the world. So there are a lot. I Am a Field is a very environmental uh, poem, uh, and there's a lot of that. So it's that's got two parts to it, really, or three. It's got three parts, but essentially, I think of it as two. So in that sense, but the makeup of the actual way the poems are constructed is not different a lot. And one of the reasons that reading a poem works well is, I was thinking of an analogy with house music in a club. It goes along so well, and then there's what they call the drop, and everybody goes crazy at that. And
Mm.
most of the poem usually end with a drop, and so that last line, like in I Am a Mother, which is I Miss My Mother, which is perhaps a
Amazing
best
poem.
received poem, it ends with the mother saying, the trouble with you is you do this or that, and she just ends. The trouble with me is I miss my mother,
Oh.
and that's a killer. That's just a killer line. You're never going to walk away from that with people without being saying that is brilliant. And she does that
Hmm.
over and over again with her poems. The last line is good. It just really opens up people's hearts, I think. And
Yeah. Who were
uh,
some of the artists that inspired Rosie?
artists, uh, let me think, Matisse primarily.
Mm.
Matisse, not Picasso, but other ones uh, uh, through history, the Impressionists and a wide variety. But Matisse is the main one. We got thousands of books about Matisse, and she wrote the poem "Open Window Colliery," which is about Matisse, the most generous of artists, and so he would be the main one. But other ones and music too. All kinds of music feeds into this. Although she never tried to make music herself, particularly, but it was it fed in as well as so many poets. And I've just been in the middle of which I've not faced because I knew it was going to be a major task. You've got two bookshelves, not unlike the one that's behind me here. There are two of those totally crammed with poetry books, and now
Mm.
they're organized a bit, but not entirely. But it's
The
uh,
book storage is a serious problem. I'm having it
yeah,
now. It's just like I really need to keep all these books, but I really don't know where to put them.
yeah. Well, that's right. I mean, I'm trying to get rid of the books that are all over this house, and I give the Faversham charity bookshop 10 at a time, and then I write a diary and I decorate the page with words like I know I went to a poetry event and things like that. But I've also got a little 10. I've taken 10 books to the poetry to the shop, and then I'm done, I can count out how many books we actually had, which is frightening.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's difficult. So there's so many poets that she was influenced by and loved. And it's interesting that I mean, she much preferred D.H. Lawrence's poetry to his novels, for instance, and so throughout that, a lot of people have influenced her. Hans Christian Andersen influenced her a lot as well
Hmm.
with his fairy tales and his way of being. So there are many people from all the arts that she imbibed all of the arts to a great level. One of the other things I can say about the poetry books is she was quite dismissive of people who want to come along and write poetry without actually knowing about poetry. Like me, for instance, I decided I'd write that one poem and I think it was okay, but I don't have the right really to write a whole lot of poems because I just don't know how to do it. And people would turn up and say, I've just written this poem and it's not actually that very good. Unsurprisingly, why should it be? And
I definitely always say that you wouldn't get in a car and say you can't drive, but you're going to give it a go.
yeah,
And I think of it as the same thing.
it is the same thing. On the other hand, one thing I do see a lot of, which is kind of hard for me to take when I'm reading, somebody comes up and they put some work into their poetry, but then they say I've never read before. And
They've got
then
to just stop declaring that, just stop shooting yourself in the book. Give us
well,
the
exactly they
prize.
shouldn't bother to say that because they're almost always brilliant. They love their poem, they can really read it, and then I've got to follow that. Now I've read lots of times now, and I've got to be as good as they were when this is their first time, and that's a bit hard. Um,
I still think I'm not as good a reader. I'm more of a writer than I am a reader.
than you were you read so
Oh yeah.
fast. You
I
read so
was so
fast.
scared that first time, although I
I
didn't
know,
really
of
feel
course.
scared. Now I'm more drunk than scared.
Yeah, yeah, okay, good thinking.
What was Rosie's artistic process for visual art? I'm looking at her pieces and they seem so right, but I would have never thought to put them together that way.
She started with a basic idea, or perhaps two ideas that she put together. So all of the neck pieces, there's something to start with, but Matisse, it's the cutouts that he did. So the Matisse piece looks is got things, and then she would say, well, okay, so that tells you something central about, isn't it? Robert Louis Stevens, it's the map of Treasure Island, for instance. And then they say, well, what else can I say about this? And then she would find things to decorate the whole outing, and we still have a lot of those things left, which are unused, which I'm trying to get rid of. But that was the process for that. For artwork, for paintings, she would make a still life setup essentially, and then and when she got that right, she'd start to draw it and then paint it, and that was the way that worked.
Mm.
And or she would have for her um, uh, for her a more uh, bigger constructed things like what I do when I don't do the ironing. So you start with an ironing board and you put on everything else that she did when she didn't do the ironing. So that's the idea. When you got that, then it's about decoration after that. And she was particularly uh, moved by girls who've been locked in basements in like Elizabeth Fritzell and people like that. And so she made this artwork, which is called the Fairy Castle, but it has it's a bird cage, and then with a middle layer, which is a bourgeois living room, and a couple of gods looking down. But the basement are girls tied to beds, and showing that what what is done to girls and women is underneath and apparently um, uh, uh, smooth and cultured and well-lived life. And
Mm.
um, so some of the things would start just from a purely political idea of, this is horrific what's going on, and
Mm.
um,
Our relationships with our mothers as women are paramount. They
yeah,
affect us so much in everything, no matter what they do. Do
yeah.
you see Rosie's mother as a silent character or presence in all of her writing? How do you think Rosie's mother affected her?
Well, from that one, I miss my mum. It's all about I miss the loving I gave but didn't get,
Mm.
and her mother affected her very negatively. She didn't get what you would want from a mother. She got the idea that life for a woman is always going to be hard. Just get on with it, and I won't make it much easier for you. And the one very important issue in her life when she was about 3 or 4, she liked to sit in her father's study because she absolutely loved her father. They loved each other absolutely. It was completely solid when you saw them together, even though they argued and so on all the time and got angry with each other. They loved each other, but her mother gave her little. So her mother didn't like this, a little girl being in her father's study, because it's clear if you've got a daughter and your husband loves the daughter more than you, that's not good. That really isn't good.
I think that's the idea, though. I think in normal
Yeah,
relations,
and
that's the idea.
so that hurt her a lot because she was not allowed to do that anymore, and that really hurt her. So there's
Yeah.
there's always a sense of her, but all a sense of trying to win our love. What I've come across yesterday, which I'd forgotten about, she wrote she made a lovely booklet of when her mother, for her mother's 85th birthday, of poems, and it's handwritten on really nice paper, and so I need to protect that in some way because it's absolutely stunning. And so she didn't stop trying to be a good daughter, even though she didn't get a lot back in return. And though more and more, it got better as her mother got older, without any question. And they were able to be together and do things together, go for walks together when she was over in Canada. And so it got better, but it was never great. And um, but when she was a little girl, it was all about her brothers and having five brothers, and it doesn't give a lot of time left for a girl, and which is a standard for the time. I mean, it was not uh, um, girls um, were not well loved by their mothers. I don't think in the 50s. Whether they are now is another matter. But I don't know much about that. But the oh, except I sometimes see in my family where there are some little girls, the mothers are all in all about the girl, absolutely solid, and which is nice to see.
I always thought I'd prefer to have a girl, and I did have a very magical experience with my daughter. But when I had a son, he's just the apple of my eye. So I would say it's equal. I'd say I like
Yeah.
equally it.
How is she doing out of
Oh,
that?
she's doing amazing. She's an amazing person. And I remember her meeting Rosie, and Rosie was ever so encouraging about her, was so kind, was so kind about the pregnancy, was so
Yeah,
kind about the post-pregnancy. So it was actually a really nice
yeah.
thing.
I remember her in what's it, the tin box, the tin roof, the black thing in London,
Yeah.
in Faversham rather, not London. Yeah, and that was nice to see. Yeah,
Yeah, she's a magical little girl.
yeah, good.
What advice would you give to young people getting into writing? Is it true that it's never too late and you should never give up?
No, it's definitely never too late. I mean, Rosie's not the only exception to the idea that you can't do it when you're older. Absolutely, lots and lots of writers have started very late, and artists as well. So that's the end of that. What the better idea was, you don't have to rush. You don't have to rush. You can say, actually, I can't do it now. It doesn't feel right. I know I want to, but it doesn't feel right. And so um, if you wait, it will come, or it won't. But you mustn't think it's never going to come. And it's good. I even have that myself. Again, I've written these poems, but they're just there's two, and that's it. But I started for some reason. I've always told myself stories to get to sleep. That's what I do. And well, let's write one of them. And I couldn't believe how well it worked, because I tried writing something 20 years ago and it was disastrous. I thought of a really important activity that happened that was going to be core to the whole thing. And half a page later, I'd finished.
Mm.
That's not good. And then I started writing essentially because I was bereaved, I think. And so I invented people to love, and I wrote about them. And that's worked.
Writing can be
I
an
like what I
amazing,
write. So,
yeah, writing can be an amazing coping strategy, an amazing mental health strategy.
yeah.
Just if you need someone to love, you can love your characters. If you need to be loved, you can create someone that needs to be loved. You can work out situations. It's almost like
Yes.
going into like the holodeck in Star Trek and working something out.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly like that. That's certainly what it felt like me. And to her, she suddenly, I mean, I think when she was 40 or so, she suddenly thought, I can do this. And I've had all kinds of things stopping me, and now they're not there anymore.
Mm.
And I just get on with it, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But it did.
Mm.
It did massively, and so that was good.
A lot of people talk about a harsh, gentle dichotomy with a harsh exterior, perhaps, and a really soft interior when it came to Rosie. What do you think of that? Do you recognize that characterization?
Uh,
And it's a good thing,
I
it's
think
not
the
negative.
exterior. I think the exterior and the interior were a mix of both. Anyway, she certainly didn't take fools lightly,
Oh no.
uh, and uh, and she was in. This is something I'd never thought about. If you are what I think of her as brilliantly creative and brilliantly capable. For instance, there's sewing in things like zipped, and she could sew better than her mother when she was 5. So you're good at things. It never thought, not having been that good at things, being okay, but not that good at things. It never crossed my mind how hard it is to deal with other people who are not good at things
That's
and how who
interesting.
are taking too long to do what you would have done in 5 minutes,
Mm.
and who just are not very good at things. Um, uh, and I had never thought of that being a burden, but it was for her without question. She maybe sometimes couldn't understand why somebody wasn't doing things the right way. They just didn't know how, and she wasn't. Or sometimes she was comfortable with that and kind, but sometimes she wasn't. It was hard for her sometimes. That should have gone better. If that person had done their job right, it would have gone better, and that's hard to put up with, and it's also hard to hear. Really, I mean, be kinder to this person. I spent some time after she died healing, well, not healing the relationship because it was no longer there, but talking to people about that wasn't your fault, kind of thing, and that felt like a very important thing to do, because not leaving a legacy for people who loved her as being purely negative, and that worked to some extent with some people. Um, so that was important.
That's the
But
burden of being bright, isn't it? You
yes,
know, you just feel like, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. And that's what I meant earlier when I said she was
yeah,
kind of effervescent.
exactly
Yeah.
that. Yeah, so it's just not easy. It wasn't easy for her in that way. She wants somebody, she wants peer, and always she wants somebody at the same level that she could interact with. She wanted that in her marriage too, and she didn't have that there either. She just wanted an equal relationship, and I wasn't very good at that in several different ways. So
You've
she
got
had to
to
deal with that.
you've got to kind of accept your relationship as it is, though. I think
Yeah,
sometimes,
absolutely.
especially as artists, we want someone to consume that can never be consumed. And I
Yeah,
think that that's a tall call for a
yeah,
husband.
yeah. So yeah, no, it was. It took a lot of adjustment for me to realize this is some brilliant person I'm married to, and I didn't expect or really want that. It isn't.
It's complex. It's really interesting you say that it's complex and it's the reality, it's the truth, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I respected her and I loved the fact that she was so good, but I also found it hard. It put a lot of responsibility on me to be more of a person I'd ever been before, and uh, and that wasn't easy. And it was definitely not easy for her.
Hmm.
Why do you keep making a mess of these things and so on? And that was perfect normal response that she would have to. Well, I have that response to me all the time, but and why shouldn't she? And it was hard for her in terms of her work. She had to rely on herself uh, almost entirely. I was not capable. I certainly wasn't any capable of bringing any input into her creative post process. I didn't know how to paint or write poetry, and why
You do know how to
should
write
I?
poetry, though.
Sorry,
I don't believe you don't know how to write poetry. I think you do know how to write
well, I
poetry.
do now. It's very different now. If I could be, as usual, you probably already think that, but certainly you will. Why can't I be the like the person I am now? Why can't I have been that years and years and years ago? And then I would have done things a lot better. People always feel like that, and I think, and one of the things that getting older is I read biographies, and nobody is satisfied about their end of their life. You think these people have done brilliant things, and that wasn't enough. They haven't done enough, and Rosie felt that, I think, as well. But so it's hard. You just have to say, "Well, I am what I am now," and learn compassion for yourself.
Oh
And
yeah, definitely got to have compassion, time for yourself, and I am what I am is a brilliant thing to live by. What's next? Where would you like to take Rosie's work? I know you said about a gallery in London, but a long term, what else would you like to
I've
do?
got to somehow set up some way of protecting the work and putting in a place where it can be looked after. I have some money, and I've thought about maybe buying a gallery somewhere. I suppose it's a very recent thought. So buying a gallery somewhere and installing her artwork there and creating a position as somebody who looks after it, and that's what I want to do. I think that's the only way forward. And a lot of people like yourself and all over would contribute some concept, some ideas to that, and get it going. I just need to get on with it, and um, which is difficult to do.
Oh yes, definitely. Well, I think that's pretty much everything. Thank you for talking to me, and thank you for talking to me about Rosie.
Yeah,
All right then, take care. I will.
yeah. It was lovely talking to you, Sasha. Lovely, lovely,
Lovely talking to you too, and
and
I will catch up with you
see
later.
you soon. Hopefully, at this opening event, you could come to. That would be nice.
I would love to. I'd absolutely love to. Take care. Have a good day. Bye
You
bye.
too. Bye.
Bye bye.